Hey guys, I know I always try to put a disclaimer at the beginning of my commentaries asking y'all not to harass anyone, but that goes double this time. Do not harass Doodletones for any of the things that I'm about to criticize them for in this video. Not only would that give him and his cronies something to use against me, but I'm also not making this video with the intention of canceling Sean. I'm not here to run him off the internet. I'm only here to offer him honest, if harsh, critiques of some of the actions he's taken over the past few days. So, once again, do not harass them. Thank you and enjoy the video.
Yes, no, maybe. I don't know. Can you repeat the question? You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now, and you're not so big. You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now, and you're not so big. Life is unfair.
So, a lot of things have been happening, huh? Hey everybody, Alex the Critic here, and it's once again time to rip into a stupid video that I found on the internet. This is Cancerous Commentaries. The target of today's video is a slideshow commentator named Doodletones, and the video of his that I'm covering is titled Addressing That Roleplay One Last Time. Before I begin, however, let me cover everything that led to the creation of this video. For anybody whose internet has been out for the past week, there's a bit of a shitstorm brewing in both the ArtCC and SCC communities. On February 26th, Akumu premiered the latest episode of his retrospective commentary series on the Fruitcake Club. If you don't know who the Fruitcake Club, or FCK, are, they're a collection of art and slideshow commentators whom Akumu got into conflict with over the Madame drama. Anyways, the video in question was not a response to any of the videos that the FCK made on Akumu, but was rather him going over the many degenerate things that various members of the FCK did in their private Discord server. These things included having sexually charged conversations with minors about various topics, such as which porn site is the best to use.
I want to look at anime titties. No stress relief. Ah, you were watching hentai. How cute. Completely understandable. Not hentai. I was on Pornhub. It's all about X and XX. Hentai weirds me out. What the fuck? I respect Pornhub as a company. Pornhub for bottoms, so I use them. I use XX videos, but I mostly look up porn comics. Adult comics are good. X videos is way better than Pornhub, don't at me. Sex.com is good too. Ban deleted user for wrong opinion. Agreed. X videos is good for free HD. Pornhub doesn't have. We're getting a fucking debate on which porn site's better.
And sharing sexually explicit materials with the other members in the server, some of which, might I remind you, were minors.
On January 13th, Toasty Vanilla shares futa porn of Sandy the Squirrel with a ginormous penis sucking in a taxi cab. On January 29th, we take a trip to the chat Toasty's Tits, a chat that was dedicated to porn. Toasty tags Flamurs asking, "Have you seen the Rule 34 of my goat character?" Wait, are you talking about the futa one? The only valid version of me is the futa version. That's the true you. And then he sent the image tagging Slammers again. February 6th, Miss ZZ tags Hopeless Peaches telling her to join her and play Toontown, and then sent a meme about Hitler. This then goes into them spamming Hitler, Nazi art, memes, and futa porn, like yet again Sandy the squirrel from SpongeBob, and then of a giant futa Hatsune Miku drowning the city, and you can probably guess. Then some sexually suggestive Nazi art, a pig and an anime girl pregnant with pigs, a Nazi pony, and then tagging Peaches with futa porn, Lego porn, Butters tagging Peaches with more futa porn, then Butters sending porn of a Pokemon dad having sex with his son, who is a baby Pokemon. Their spam kept going with Mad Libs later sending porn of Tony the Tiger and the Cheetah from Cheetos touching tips, tagging Miss ZZ afterwards. 11:38 p.m. on February 6th, Nezzy Monster was invited into the server. The next day, February 7th, at around 5 in the morning, they started doing their meme and porn spam again, and this time, Nezzy Monster reacted to it with a simple meme about holy water eye drops. My goat is thick. Toastie's isn't. Then he sends a photo of the goat to try and prove his point, I guess, about the thickness of their avatars, their little avatars. Not enough. Everyone wants to fuck mine. Then Mimi sends, I don't know what that is. Supposed to be her little character, depressed, with a hat on. Then Ms. Zizi sending what I can only assume to be cropped porn of her character. That, I don't exactly know what's happening here. Porn is overrated. Excuse me. Racism. I love racism. Me too. I think I've seen it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck this is. Yeah, that's hot. Yes, it's slow as hell. Nah. Also, my manager is busy teaching new employees, and I'll probably just leave. I'm like 5'1". More, I guess, cropped pornography of Miss Zizi's character. Here's an art piece of Peaches and Miss Zizi kissing. We should all watch gotcha porn. Oh shit, shitposting hours. I guess this is gotcha porn right here. Stop, I'm only 10. Just one question. What the fuck is this? You know what? I'm in agreement. What the fuck is that? That's you groping yourself. I mean Discord grope. I'm just watching it.
Keep in mind that Doodletones himself was a part of this server, and yet said nothing about the things going on in there for years. And before somebody goes, well, Alex, do you have any evidence that there were minors in this server, or that any of the people in said server knew that there were minors in it? Let me bring up that Slimmers, one of the members of the FCK server, whose Discord handle you can see in many of the screenshots that Akumu went over, was 15 at the time of these interactions, and there are videos from several of the commentators that were also in the FCK server acknowledging Slimmers' age.
Some of the art community's favorite art-tards, or even the commentary communities, were in this group, like Nezzy Monster, Mad Libs, Miss ZZ, Doodletones, Dumbsville, Toby Majestic, Nani, The Name's Junkie, Fuchsia Butter, Just a Robot, Hopeless Peaches. The abandoned account is Hopeless Peaches. Here's a screenshot showing the account before she changed the username to Abandoned Account, and here's an interaction confirming that the account is Peaches. Teddy the Draws, though her previous account is now deleted, and there are at least 2 other deleted accounts, so it can be difficult to discern who is who. Unless she's texting her cringy Teddy noises, or sends screenshots from her DMs, or even from her YouTube channel. There's also Slimmers, Manga Common, Mimi Diggs, Toasty Vanilla, OMGIJ252, or Jamesy as he's known, LS Mark, Ben the Looney, One Man Show Off, Chaos55T, and Ellie Momelli.
Well, a YouTuber by the name of Madam has recently been accused of stealing art from a 15-year-old artist called Slimmers.
If y'all haven't heard, a Leafy Was Here ripoff is in some hot water for basically tormenting a young 15-year-old artist by the name of Slimer's Cryotic.
Put yourself in Slimmer's shoes for a moment. You're a 15-year-old artist.
For those of you who don't know what the Madam drama is, what happened is this piece of shit YouTuber who calls herself the female Leafy Is Here, not sure why you'd ever want to brand yourself like that, but she commissioned a 15-year-old artist.
See, Madame is a YouTuber who was interested in commissioning an artist called Slimers. Slimers, due to their age, did not have a PayPal, therefore could not accept payment.
And before somebody goes, okay, well, just because the other members of this Discord server shared porn with at least one minor, that doesn't mean that Doodletones knew anything about it, or that they committed this themselves. They could have just lurked in the server for 5 minutes after being invited, and then left without seeing any of this horrible shit. While it's true that Doodletones himself did not send any porn in the server, at least as far as we know, they did know that this stuff was happening spamming in it thanks to a call that Akumu had with both Nezzy Monster and Doodletones that was arranged by Lio Convoy and hosted in his Senate server. In that call, Akumu directly asked Nezzy about the nature of the FCK server's porn spamming, and Doodletones admits that said porn spamming was just the environment that the creator of the server had cultivated.
We're winding down. We're almost out of time here. Do we have anything else we need to cover that's of actual significance to all of this?
I do have questions regarding the FCK server. I'm not asking about the whole Toasty stuff because that, again, is your all stuff to handle.
All right, let's go ahead and lightning round that sucker then.
So I can send evidence for this if you want. The problem is that it's porn.
We're all 18. We're all over 18 here. There are no children in this server.
Okay.
But thank you for checking.
Perfect. So, there was a lot of porn sent in that server, and this is just one issue that I had that I've discussed previously, is that a lot of, well, Madlibs, I can say this about Madlibs, initially her server had a lot of minors and a lot of porn in it that they had access to. That was also a problem with Lucy's server, and you all, well, okay, I won't say you all because I'm not going to rope you in with it, but I'll talk about the group. And I have questions specifically because you've seen it, and you were in an interaction when they were sending porn, and the only thing that you sent was a little holy water meme. You didn't say anything about the fact that, well, Teddy at the time was like 16 or 17, Slimmers was 15, or yeah, 15 at the time, and then James was like 16. And those weren't the only minors in that Discord, but those are the three I can confirm at the time. And there was like just a fuck ton of porn sent in the server. Madlib sent porn, Lucy sent porn, Toasty sent a lot of porn. He sent most of it. What is with the porn spamming?
I don't know. He would do that in our conversations too.
Well, he wasn't the only one that did
it. Was just kind of.
I know.
It was just kind of the environment that Toasty built. I do remember
and there were
that.
NSFW specific chats.
So yeah, I don't want to hear any bullshit excuses about how, oh, nobody knew that there were minors in a server, or just because they did know that there were minors in a server, that doesn't mean that they themselves are guilty of doing anything wrong. Especially not when these are the same people that have gone after niggas for way less. For fuck's sake, both Nezzy and Lio grilled Akumu for throwing an innocuous insult at Slimmers about how he was trying to have some pathetic fun.
Can you explain the daddy wanted a little fun comment?
That wasn't actually, you all claimed that I added Slimmers to shame her with it, but
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying what you said in your video, just because daddy wanted to have a little fun.
I didn't say that in my video. It was a tweet.
No, you said that in a video.
No, it was a tweet.
Video or tweet.
So you're admitting that you still said it.
It was a tweet that you all claimed that I tagged Slimmers to mock her for it, and then here's the kicker: Slimmers was never added in it. So the screenshot that you all continuously provided that had Slimmers' at was photoshopped because her at was never in the tweet.
It was not photoshopped.
Her at was never in the tweet.
Also, you said it in the video. I remember it specifically because we go on a tangent about you saying
I discussed the tweet, but I never said it.
No, about the daddy wanted a little fun comment. I remember us talking about this.
Can I get some context about why that was said?
Someone named Judith on Twitter, in a interaction when I was pointing out that Slimmers had in a story or Instagram thing basically did the same thing, which was telling people to continue going at Madame, but no one talked about that. She brought up that Slimmers was like sexually assaulted, and so that was somehow a justification for her behavior in the drama. It was like this Judith or Edith person on Twitter. That was the context of that conversation, which conveniently got cut out by Lucy and by Madlibs. I wouldn't really blame Nezzy for that one, but
okay,
one thing I've always wondered.
I'm asking you
what's up?
Why you said Daddy wanted to have a little fun.
No, I said because Daddy tried to have pathetic fun. That's what I said.
Yeah, that's still not a good statement.
Like, what the heck were you thinking?
I didn't say it was.
Then why did you say it?
I just explained to you why I said it. The interaction between me and the individual was them trying to use the
That's
fact
not
that she had...
explaining why you said it.
That's exactly
That's-
why I'm explaining why I said it.
Well,
That's what
No,
happened.
you're not
Hold on.
explaining why you said something so fucking disgusting.
Is the reason you said it because you wanted to dig at the person?
So let me get this straight. When the members of the FCK server distribute pornography to minors, you guys don't really get all that upset about it and try to instead shift the blame onto the creator of the server. But Akumu says something slightly creepy to Slimmers and you lose your fucking minds about it? Give me a fucking break. This is why nobody likes you people. Anyways, 3 days before Akumu's video on the server premiered, Madlibs, one of the bigger members of the FCK, went to Twitter and posted a long thread excoriating both herself and her friends for everything they did in it. She also criticized the members of the FCK for the shitty things that they did outside of the server. While the whole thread makes for a pretty vindicating read, the only part of it that's relevant to the topic that I'm going to be covering today concerns what Madlib said about Doodletones. Akumu, if you will.
Fuck you Doodletones for telling me you just had some diaper fetish stuff from 2014 when you liked to sexually roleplay as a fucking 8-year-old in the past. Granted, I should have done my research. That one's on me too.
Doodletones did not appreciate this call out and went to Twitter to let his audience know that he'd be making a video to address the erotic roleplay in question. Fast forward to February 25th, and he uploads the very video that I'm here to criticize. With all of that context out of the way, let's get things going.
You smell of poo-poo pee-pee. I see.
You got what you asked for.
Oh really, Sean? I don't think I have, considering that you still haven't owned up to the fact that you're a degenerate, nor have you owned up to the fact that you knew what kind of fucked shit your friends were doing in their little server, and yet you said nothing about it for years.
So far this year, not only have I been dealing with excessive cleanup from years prior in the SCC, but it looks like, once again, I'm going to have to deal with excessive cleanup on my end because no one fucking understands anything and still wants to hold shit over my head from nearly a decade ago.
Yeah, you really have no right to complain about still having to clear up and address things that happened years ago. When your buddies in the FCK and their sycophantic fanbase have continually gone after Akumu for all of the shit that he did during the Madame drama 5 years ago. And when Akumu brought up that the sycophantic fans of the FCK were still bringing up that shit in order to get a dunk on him in irrelevant internet arguments, what did you and Nezzy Monster suggest that he do?
I told you this in a comment once, and that I wish you the best, and I really want you to get therapy, because it's been over. It's been over for 3 years. And if people come to you, tell them to fuck off. It's none of their business.
Oh, that's simple and easy when it's like Discord messages and shit, which I've done before. But when I'm like getting into a fucking YouTube slap fight and someone whips it out of nowhere because, oh, Ponder and Nezzy said it, so it has to be true. Oh,
Then stop getting in Twitter
Hey,
fights. Stop getting in fights, dude.
As someone who still has, just a robot get brought up, or Medicare, as you might know, Kumu, I just kind of roll my eyes and kind of just disengage myself.
Yeah, so when it comes to Akumu, he's supposed to just grit his teeth and get over it, and just move on and tell those people to fuck off. But when that same exact energy gets brought to you, what do you do in response? You make this 20-minute video trying to explain the context of this roleplay that people hold over your head from 8 years ago. So spare me the moralizing, Sean, because I don't have any fucking sympathy for you.
So the inspiration for this particular iteration of me addressing the things that refused to let me go was Madlib's art, an ex-art commentator who decided to go salted earth when she didn't need to on Twitter, February 23rd, 2024.
Go salted earth when she didn't really need to? Oh my god, that is fucking rich coming from Doodletones of all people. Remind me, Sean, which one of us bitched about my Mr. Enter video on Twitter, and then had the gall to complain about being roped into petty drama when I criticized you for not saying my name in your original tweet? Quote, IS2G. if a drama blows up about me, checks notes, not liking a video, and voicing that feeling on Twitter in a brief tweet, then it's gonna take the cake as the pettiest drama I've ever been a part of. Oh yeah, that was you! You did that! Better still, you tried to justify doing it by arguing that I had done it myself in the comment that I left calling you out. Quote, PSA. If you're going to make some sort of statement about how subtweeting doesn't require any integrity because you're not going to someone directly about their points, maybe don't do it in a subtweeting fashion, almost as if that's double standards or something. Especially if you're going to do it in the comments of a video that's not even about me. BTW, in case anyone wants the context to this. Gets even more rich when one of Alex's problems is that we didn't say his name, yet refuses to say mine. It's kind of the cherry, really. And that I had done it in the video itself by talking about tweets in it instead of directly responding to those tweets on Twitter. Quote, but no, let's act as if the people who took issue with your video have no integrity because we talked about your video on Twitter while you talk about Twitter folks in a YT video. I'm just saying, you could take the initiative first if you want that conversation, homie. This is despite the fact that if you go back and read the original comment thread in question, both myself and Akumu make references to traits that are specific to Doodletones. And Akumu even name drops him in one of the comments. And the fact that my problem wasn't that people weren't directly arguing with me about the points in my Mr. Enter video, but rather that they were shit-talking me without saying my name. Let's also not overlook the fact that in my Mr. Enter video, I displayed the tweets I was responding to without censoring them in any way. And while some of these Twitter users' handles were obscured by their nicknames, I don't think directly highlighting and then addressing publicly made arguments on a social media platform is in any way comparable to vaguely shitting on someone's video by calling it one of the worst of the year. So, in essence, Doodletones made a false equivalence in order to call me a hypocrite. So once again, spare me the fucking moralizing, douchebag, because I have no sympathy for you. And hey, what else did you say about me in your top 10 worst commentaries of 2022 list again?
Alex kind of reminds me of that kid Douglas a bit, specifically in regards to the passively spiteful approach that can turn aggressive when provoked, and his need to take things out of context or misconstrue a narrative to make himself seem smart.
Oh, you guys are gonna see in a moment how much that comment came back to bite him in the ass.
In this thread, she, very out of nowhere may I add.
I mean, it wasn't out of nowhere. You're friends with many of the people that Madlibs is pissed off at. You were in their Discord server, and Madlibs felt that you did things that personally pissed her off and crossed the line, which is what she's critiquing the members of the FCK for. So talking about how this tweet of hers came from out of nowhere is some bullshit semantic point that only retards would take seriously.
Throws extra shade on me after already saying that I was a bad person for empathetically saying someone else could have merely forgotten a screenshot for a situation that they were involved in.
Oh, what, empathy? You're appealing to empathy, Doodletones? Where was all this empathy when you flat out accused me of being an anti-vaxxer?
Who made 2 videos on the subject. An initial one defending Mr. Enter's review, and then a follow-up on the SCC once they caught wind of Alex's headassery. Technically, out of the 2, I consider the latter to be worse, but not only does it become a video somewhat on me at a point, so it's ineligible for this year, but also, I don't really care to talk about anti-vax narratives, and that's like the whole second half of the video.
Where was all of that empathy when Akumu complained to both you and Nezzy Monster about how people kept bringing up the shit he did during the Madame drama back in 2019 in order to own him in internet slap fights that had nothing to do with the drama?
As someone who still has, just a robot get brought up, or Medicare, as you might know, Akumu, I just kind of roll my eyes and kind of just disengage myself.
Where was all this empathy for the minors that your friends spammed porn to in the FCK Discord server, which none of y'all, I might add, ever talked about until it was about to blow up in your fucking faces?
What is with the porn spamming?
I don't know. He would do that in our conversations too.
Well, he wasn't the only one that
It
did
was
it.
just kind of.
I know.
It was just kind of the environment that Toasty built. I do
Yeah,
remember
and there were
that.
NSFW specific chats.
So don't talk to me about no empathy and expect me to buy that as an excuse for your running cover for Nezzy Monster's lies. Because you know damn well that you wouldn't afford that same courtesy to me, Akumu, or anybody else if the shoe was on the other foot. For those of you who don't know what Nezzy Monster is lying about and has been lying about, allow me to play a couple clips from a video that Akumu made about the situation about a year or so ago.
To keep the two censored as they've moved on, I will refer to the individuals as Person A and Person B. A sent B the photo on June 30th of 2020. It's just a shirtless photo, but I am keeping it censored regardless. The two later fell out. What kicked this situation off was Person A joining Nezzy Monster's Discord server on August 23rd or 24th. Person B was in the server and apparently told Nezzy Monster she was uncomfortable because Person A sent the shirtless photo to her. In response, Nezzy Monster decided to make a public announcement that Person A was being banned for sexually harassing a member of the server. Friends of mine joined the server to defend Person A, which resulted in Nezzy's admins and her accusing all of them of having participated in the sexual harassment. Fortunately, because Nezzy deleted this announcement, I don't have the screenshot of it, but I do have a screenshot of them admitting to being wrong about friends participating. I joined and went to speak with Nezzy Monster about this, and I sent her a total of 15 or 16 screenshots. The last screenshot I sent Nezzy is where Person A was told by Person B to send here, in regards to the shirtless image. All of the screenshots were from months before because the event happened 2 months prior to the situation in Nezzy Monster's Discord. The photo was sent on June 30th, and the situation in Nezzy's server and the DMs between me and her were on August 24th. In our DMs, Nezzy resorted to bringing up irrelevant shit, such as Person A's thoughts on Person B's boyfriend, trying to accuse me of accusing Lucy, Fuchsia Butters, of being a pedophile, then proceeded to ask me if they were doing something sexual in the My Hero Academia porn that Fuchsia Butters liked, and when told yes, asked, "The server's been deleted, so why is it still a problem if you don't mind me asking?" And then resorted to the fucking victim card. "And why are you still obsessing over taking me down after all this time? Why do you keep going after me and my friends after it's been months?" Like it wasn't her and her friends who continuously went after me, lied about me, and were now lying about people who associated with me. Now again, Madlibs released her video about me on September 29th of 2020, about a month after this situation happened. The reason that this video is important is because they went on to make the same sexual harassment claims in the video, using not just the same screenshots Nezzy sent me in DMs, but also the ones I sent her.
On August 24th, Nezzy made that announcement in her server telling people not to DM the person because they were banned for sexually harassing another member, because he was. Then a few more misunderstandings took place, leading people to believe a few other people were an alt of this person or involved in the harassment, and the mods quickly made announcements to clear up their mistakes. After that, it was revealed that the person was a minor. Now, that doesn't change what he did, but Nezzy did understand it, and she knew that it needed to be stated. So she made one final announcement clearing everything up, which reads, "Please do not attack redacted name, as he is underage. He should not be sending these types of pictures he did, not just for the safety of others, but for his own. Please keep in mind the images were not pornographic, but the nature of the images were inappropriate and he still made someone uncomfortable and was sent without permission regardless. The reason I am stating this is because of finding out his age and by request of the individual that requested he be banned. Please stay safe, everyone, and have a nice day. I will not be talking about the situation anymore. I want to clarify he is not evil, but I will not tolerate his behavior or his actions." Now, because of this, Akumu has decided to go around claiming that Nezzy has been spreading false allegations against a minor for sexual harassment, but the accusation is not false at all. Would you like to know how I know this? Because I actually have DMs of the person that she is talking about admitting to a friend and the person he sent the photos to that he sent those pictures, that it was wrong of him to do so, and the person he sent did not want it. Let's read them, shall we? Yeah, nope, doesn't seem I did. Damn, I be saying shit. Look, you're good, and I knew that from the start. Got lovely personality, smart, good at art, funny, cute AF, and kept telling me you had a fat ass. Redacted is a lucky man. Hope that relationship doesn't end, and I mean that. You stressed me out, and I know I've stressed you out a lot. Should have left near the beginning, but something about you made me break several morals that I hold dear and try for you. Not your fault, all mine, I know. Asked Redacted if I should leave, refused to respond, got a good idea if Redacted's answer, and I know mine. Here's him talking to a friend about this whole situation. I also can't understand why you would send shirtless pics when she never asked, other than trying to impress somehow. Sent them to friends and they said I was fit, felt body positive, and girls like that, so I sent. So he does not deny that she did not want these photos. Which is awfully interesting, considering Akuma has been running around telling people that the person his friend sent these to wanted it, reciprocated, and shared her not safe for work art with him after those images of himself were sent. Would you guys like to see his evidence of this? His evidence are screenshots from July and August, showing that they were friends and that she trusts him. Do I make you feel safe, confident, or what? Yeah, you can be here. I might take a nap though. Yeah, you do. I left your server, haha. We weren't even friends. Oh, do you want to be? Sure, since you're friends with Redacted, and I trust that dude with my life.
Madlibs admits it's my evidence, and if we look at the screenshots she shows on screen, we can see these are 2 out of the 16 I sent Nezzy Monster. This means Madlibs had me and Nezzy's DMs, or at the very least, had the evidence from them, cherry-picked what she wanted out of them, and ignored the rest. Especially the last one being the most important, considering they've cut context on pretty much anything they've ever talked about. It's just the FCK style. Now, how fucking retarded do you have to be to use screenshots I sent you, and then deny being sent screenshots? Madlibs is lying. Big shock, right?
I had never seen this screenshot. No one ever sent it to me. If I had seen it, I would not have included that segment in the video at all, or I would have heavily rewritten it.
What about Nezzy Monster? Let's take a second look at her apology from January of 2021. So drama from a couple of months ago that I do need to clarify. A couple of months ago, I apologized for not handling a situation correctly. I banned someone for sending a shirtless photo to another individual without permission. I reacted hastily. I undeniably panicked and warned the server. Someone then came to me saying that I was falsely accusing his friend and proceeded to send me screenshots that were not related to the situation at all, and in fact from months before. This someone was yours truly, but I guess I'm Voldemort. And as I just went over, she was sent several screenshots, including the one where person A was told by person B to send the photo. The incident she was playing Captain fucking Kirk for, the shirtless photo, happened prior to her server, so of course the screenshots would show that. They decided to wait and make a video showing a screenshot proving otherwise, instead of showing me then and there to clear the air and rectify the situation. I let them talk and they decided to withhold information for some kind of gotcha moment. This is ironic because you're leaving out information in this twitlonger. I didn't wait to make a video, and I did show you the screenshot. You ignored it, worked with Madlibs to make a video a month later, accusing person A again of sexual harassment.
Now because of this, Akuma has decided to go around claiming that Nezzy has been spreading false allegations against a minor for sexual harassment, but the accusation is not false at all.
Left out the screenshot proving that was false, and took the others I sent out of context, all because I was making fun of you for it on Twitter. Then you made this twitlonger leaving all of those details out, and lying, all to save your reputation. However, I am still at fault. I should have calmed down and properly looked at the situation. I have already apologized for how I handled the situation before knowing this, but I want to apologize again. I did not intend for this to happen, nor did I have any malicious intent. Have a nice day. And she announced this twitlonger. Someone did reply with a recording I gave them of me and her DMs. And in response, she went on to lie even more, claiming that she was only sent one screenshot that was cropped to only say send here, and that I had apparently admitted to sending person A to stalk and spy on her. Mind you, she's making these lies in response to a full recording of me and her DMs. That's how fucking desperate she is. You can clearly see here that the screenshot that I sent her is not cropped to only say send here and shows other Discord messages. I never once admitted to sending person A to stalk or spy on her, so she's also a fucking schizo. As of 2022, Nezzy Monster is still stating she was misinformed and that she apologized. The problem is, the apology isn't shit when you keep lying in it, and lying about what you're apologizing for. You may have been misinformed when you first made these accusations in August of 2020, but after you were sent the evidence from me, you then went on to make these accusations a second fucking time, and went as far as cherry-picking the evidence I sent you. Twitlonger is more focused on lying to cover your ass than it is actually apologizing. You weren't misinformed the second time you made these accusations. You had the information. Hell, you clearly shared the information. How else did my exact screenshot that I sent you end up in Madlibs' video? You made the claim the first time in August, didn't like the fact that you got fucking smacked around by me, decided that you were gonna go and make these claims again a second time, and didn't think you were gonna get fucking caught. not. So now you're trying to make it seem as though I withheld the information from you to make me out to be the bad guy. This is nothing but twisting the truth.
This is the bitch you're going to bat for, Sean? This is who you're going to afford your empathy to? Nezimonster made the same false sexual harassment claim twice, and then when they got called on it, they proceeded to lie several times about the details surrounding the situation, such as what Akumu sent her, how many screenshots he sent her, when and for what reason he sent her these screenshots, sending Madlib's cherry-picked screenshots so that she could repeat this false sexual harassment claim. For fuck's sake, she even lied about whether or not she had access to her DMs with Akumu. In their Senate call, Nezimonster claimed that she blocked Akumu and then closed their conversation.
Like I said, I gave what I gave to Libby, and I gave her the wrong things. I will admit that. We had a conversation about that. We left on good terms. Because I was an idiot, and I mixed up screenshots, and I misremembered a lot of shit that happened. Because after our convo, I had blocked you, and I also ended it, and I didn't know how to get it back.
However, this Senate call occurred 2 years after the Twitlonger where she claimed that Akumu withheld information from her. And as Akumu pointed out in the clips of his video that I played, people in the replies of her tweets showed her screen recordings of her DMs with Akumu. I'm sorry, but the bad memory defense doesn't fly when multiple different people have confronted you with the screenshots of these conversations. But you know what? Even if we do buy that bullshit, then I just have to ask one question. If your memory is so fucking bad, why in the hell are you sitting here on the internet making sexual harassment claims? Why the hell should we trust anything that you have to say when you can't even remember what you had for breakfast? But you know what? Let's read what Doodletones told Madlibs when she confronted the two of them about Nezimonster's lies.
Madlibs, I want an explanation, and hopefully you can see that oopsie I forgot isn't a great one. Doodletones, I can, but I can also see it being a realistic one, saving only a few screenshots, closing the DMs, then not having things when asked.
And that makes Nezimonster lying and then roping Madlibs into repeating the lie in a much more public fashion better?
Madlibs. Didn't remember they had those? That's fucking convenient, isn't it? Doodletones. If someone had closed their DMs, I wouldn't pretend like it's only to save their own hide. Like, I get you're angry, but seriously, you don't really have much reason to accuse Nezi of doing this for any ulterior motive.
Oh really, Sean? Madlibs doesn't have any reason to think that Nezimonster had any ulterior motives for doing any of this shit? Then explain to me why Nezimonster sent Madlibs selectively edited portions of the screenshots Akumu shared with her.
For talking about things that people hold me to from so many years ago, specifically mentioning that I called it diaper shit from 2014. Not only is this part unnecessary in a thread talking about a chat known as the Fruitcake Club, since it had nothing to do with the particularly bad behavior within that chat.
Oh, the particularly bad behavior that was in the chat? What kind of particularly bad behavior did your friends do in the FCK server? And why exactly did none of y'all talk about this until it was about to blow up in your faces? I want to remind all of y'all that this is the only thing that Doodletone says about the FCK server in this fucking video. Call me crazy, but I think that the sexual shit Sean's adult friends were doing with minors in the FCK Discord server, and how none of them, including Sean himself, said anything about it for years despite knowing full well what was going on, is a little more important than him getting up to degenerate shit in his own free time a decade ago. Oh, but then why did Madlibs bring it up in her thread, Alex? Here's the fucking difference. Madlibs still talked about all of the degenerate shit that was going on in the FCK server within that same fucking thread. If Madlibs can talk about both, then why can't you, Sean? Why can't you? And also, the thread wasn't just about the FCK server. It was more so about exposing all of the degenerate shit that the members of the FCK did, a lot of which occurred outside the server. Yeah, so once again, Sean is being completely disingenuous when he claims that Madlibs' thread was only about exposing what was going on in the FCK server. But then again, I can't really blame the dude for lying about this. I mean, if I had stood by while my adult friends were doing degenerate sexual shit with minors, I would want to draw as much attention away from that as well. And I'm not the only one pointing this bullshit out.
In the comment section of Doodletones' video, somebody left a comment asking that he address the shit that Slimmers was made to do in the server, given that Sean discussed Dan Stein doing a similar thing to another minor, and that they'd absolutely talk about this stuff if it happened within the SCC. They're way more forgiving towards Sean than they really should be, but this is still an incredibly valid request to make. So, what did Doodletones type out in response? I think expecting me to talk about something I had no knowledge of and have no evidence for, just because I happened to be a victim of grooming, is a little much.
Well, it wasn't just that you were in the same situation that they were, it was also the fact that you were in the exact same server where this shit happened, and yet you didn't talk about it. Despite the fact that, as the original commenter said, if this had happened in the SCC, you would absolutely be grilling these bitches. This would be like you being present when somebody shoots another person in the head in cold blood, and then when somebody points out, hey, you were there when it happened, why didn't you say anything about it? You say, well, why would you expect me to talk about it just because I was in the same situation myself when I don't even remember what happened? It also contradicts what he himself told Akumu in the Senate call when Akumu brought up the degenerate shit going on in the server to him.
What is with the porn spamming?
I don't know. He would do that in our conversations too.
Well, he wasn't the only one that did
It was just kind of...
I know.
It was just kind of the environment that Toasty, built. I do
Yeah,
remember
and there were
that.
NSFW specific chats.
So for somebody who has no knowledge of any of this shit, it sure is weird how you were nevertheless able to say, well yeah, bad things did happen in that server. One would think if they had no knowledge of anything going on in the server, they wouldn't be caught on record acknowledging that there was fucked up shit going on in the server. There you fucking have it, folks. Sean is lying in real time to cover his own ass.
Like, if this happened, then yeah, the adults should be held accountable, and I'd agree to that much, sure.
What do you mean, if this happened? Was your own testimony and the logs that Akumu showed in his video not enough evidence for you, Sean? And also, if you think that the adults who engaged in these activities should be held accountable, then why are you lying about what you yourself did? That doesn't really scream taking accountability to me.
But I hadn't been in the FCK in roughly 4 years, and outside of the conversation about Ben the Looney in there, I really don't recall a ton of what happened in there, and it's not like I exactly have the logs to call back to either.
Guys, I was in the FCK server over 4 years ago, and the only thing I remember from it was this one fucking conversation about Ben the Looney that I had in there.
What is with the porn spamming?
I don't know. He would do that in our conversations too.
Well, he wasn't the only one that did
It was just kind of...
I know.
It was just kind of the environment that Toasty, built. I do
Yeah,
remember
and there were
that.
NSFW specific chats.
Besides, it's not like I have the logs to any of that shit anyways. Huh? What was that? Akumu made an entire hour-long video going over a lot of the degenerate shit that was in there? Nah, that didn't happen.
So me talking about this would be me going in blind with little to no evidence.
Yeah, you would never just make any blind accusations with little or no evidence. When has Doodletones ever fucking done something like that?
Who made 2 videos on the subject. An initial one defending Mr. Enter's review, and then a follow-up on the SCC once they caught wind of Alex's headassery. Technically, out of the 2, I consider the latter to be worse, but not only does it become a video somewhat on me at a point, so it's ineligible for this year, but also, I don't really care to talk about anti-vax narratives, and that's the whole second half of the video.
Yeah, not having any evidence to back up that accusation didn't stop you from making the accusation, you fucking retard. You not wanting to throw any blind accusations at people without any evidence also didn't stop you from making those multiple false claims against Gilded Pooh in that video you did defending Lyo Convoy.
I guess you could come to some idea if you squint your brain a bit that because Lio is much more cordial with Pooh in this call now, that somehow that must mean Lio had never any problem with Pooh's behavior. This is in line with the beginning of the document where the writer claims pretty quickly that Lio even admits to the fact that his criticisms of this gilded Pooh person are minute at best, and therefore any argument he may have against the group are very moot. But when you read the tweet that they linked, that's not what Lio says. Lio is making an argument under the presumption that you can dismiss the issues that he has with Gilded Pooh, and then persists to bring up a much more pressing matter that claims you and your group are dismissing claims of a convicted child predator under the notion that their actions are merely ones of the past. That doesn't suddenly mean that what Lio might have to say against Pooh isn't also of importance.
You patently, and I mean patently, fucking misunderstood that entire tweet in the most maximally bad way humanly possible to such an extreme that I find it shocking you were at all surprised that I called you a liar in my comment in response to this video. I don't understand how you completely misunderstood that entire tweet. It's actually almost like you completely ignored what he was retweeting and hyper-focused on only what he said. You made a 2.5-hour video going after Niora for not being in any way, shape, or form fucking adequate with her evidence, whilst showcasing exactly the same disregard of evidence entirely. Just so you know, what was being talked about was a guy, a convicted pedophile, a convicted predator, named Tyro Inchoate. Those people that I was complaining about, that I added Lio in, were people that were in the comments section of Lio's video, trying to use Lio to go after me for drama that had nothing to do with anything, because they were mad at me for going after their friend Tyro Inchoate. In other words, Lio wasn't saying that Kaz, his crew, or myself was trying to defend a pedophile like you very heavily imply. What he was trying to say was that the people I screenshotted the comments of from his video were not people that he was in any way, shape, or form willing to associate with, because they were all connected with a fucking predator. And he wasn't willing to go after me for their benefit, for the benefit of people defending a predator. Like, I don't get how hard that was to understand. All you had to do was actually just read my tweet, read his tweet, and then maybe read some of the replies to it. You didn't have to do that much digging. You did nothing less than Niara did, actually, which is, it's very telling. And also, by the way, I'm going to say this for myself. At no point did I ever think that Lio Convoy never hated me. At no point did I ever think that Lio at any point thought, yeah, I have no issue with what Gilded Pooh does and what he chooses to say.
We then get to a recording from August of 2022 where Pooh explains that he personally doesn't care about the bestiality being posted.
This is what Opal's saying in the chat. And 2 images of prolapse, which is absolutely hilarious, by the way. And the zoophilia porn, which, I mean, look, again, I don't give a shit. As I said, ultimately, I just don't fucking care. I mean, like, we had flip phones, right, back in the day, and we were sending each other really fucked up shit like that. I mean, do you remember, there was another website that was even more fucked up than that, and I can't remember what it was called, something rotten.
Yeah, something.com.
Yeah,
Yep.
and all it was about was fucking gore. And that was where, and people would pass that around to fucking shock people and fuck them up and everything, right? It's just like, it's one of those things where I just don't give a shit.
Well, it's also pretty obvious that you're not much serious about any of this. You just do it for the lulz.
But this doesn't reflect on Lio, like, at all. The most he said was that Pooh doesn't seem to be taking any of this predator hunting seriously, and that he's only here for the lulz, which is something that Pooh himself has said on a couple of occasions.
So I'll give Doodletones the benefit of the doubt here and assume that Doodletones just didn't watch the live stream in question, which I think is fair. I'll link it below, of course. But the point is that, well, quite frankly, we weren't talking about predator hunting. We weren't talking about that fucking at all.
If we look at this from the perspective that it's not taken out of context, however, just for the sake of this argument, While that would have definitely reflected poorly on Lyo at the time, this was also August of 2022, almost a whole 7-8 months before Lyo called out the behavior of Pooh actually having and posting that zoo porn.
Okay, so she definitely did not watch the entire stream. That entire stream was about that. 7 or 8 months prior to his video. And to clarify what I meant by that, what I meant was the entire interaction between myself and Lyo on that stream was entirely about the raids. What he's actually saying in the full context of the stream is that it's obvious that I don't take bestiality and scat shitposting at all seriously, and that I just do it for the lulz. Meaning, I'm not a fucking zoophile, I just like shitposting. And what's really funny, and is either completely ignorant, stupid, or disingenuous entirely, she brings up the raid later. And in fact, she brings it up when talking about the horse porn I was spammed with.
Yes, it's inappropriate, though the Senate is an 18+ server, so one could argue it's not as bad as Gilded Pooh apparently sending this same kind of material in chats with minors, but regardless, it is inappropriate.
So clearly she knows about the raids, but has absolutely no idea when they happened. In fact, she seems to think that they happened, 7 or 8 months after they happened. Which is weird, because that tells me that she didn't even watch Lyo's video, because even in Lyo's video, the fucking goddamn timestamp on the images used is there. And to clarify something else here as well, I don't know why it is she brings up the Senate as a comparison. The accusation was never that they kept posting all that stuff in the Senate. The accusation was that they posted that stuff in my server. Even if she didn't watch mine, she didn't watch Lyo's either. On top of that, more importantly than that, I do like how she admits that they are, quote, the same type of material. That's interesting.
The biggest and most important thing is that he keeps reminding us that he has a fuck ton of bestiality porn on a hard drive, to which he constantly, jokingly hyperbolizes just how much he has all throughout this video. But this fact apparently then brings in the who rated with what, which would suddenly come into play according to him.
I love that you're so triggered by the most basic of trolling. I also enjoy how you're going out of your way to obscure the facts in regards to who rated who first, as if that doesn't actually matter. And it absolutely does, because earlier you just heavily implied that I had raided a server with kids in it knowingly and purposefully, like everybody else has implied. I find it really bothersome that at the beginning of your video, you're all like, I didn't watch anything except in the context of Neo's article. Well, clearly you didn't even do that, because most self-evidently you didn't watch the entirety of my video, and if you did, you most certainly didn't pay any fucking attention whatsoever.
It shouldn't matter, because that kind of content is reprehensible and illegal depending on where you are. I don't know, maybe Pooh Man lives in New Mexico or West Virginia.
So this part is one of my favorite parts of the video, because she actually just straight up spreads misinformation. And then later on stream, with Peaches, says, oh, it doesn't matter!
Yeah, so I don't really care about the whole, I'm gonna be honest, I don't care about the legality of bestiality porn. The point is that you own it.
Yeah, nice goalpost shift. If it didn't matter, why did you go out of your way to look up, by the way, the wrong thing? Why is it that all you fucking morons go out of your way to be like, see, it's illegal, and then, for some abstract fucking reason, always manage to look up the wrong thing? And the reason this is incorrect information is the law that you were showcasing was the act of bestiality, which, yes, is illegal in almost every state. Not the possession of porn that was gathered from online sources. If you can't determine the difference because you're too much of a fucking retarded zealot to even bother with the nuances, as you put it, well, then maybe you should just fucking off yourself.
Beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor.
You go on and on and on and on about nuance, but seriously, you lack even a basic understanding of the nuances of the very topic you're trying to shame people for.
And hey, what was it you said at the beginning of that video?
So Lyo Convoy asked me to read over this document and give my thoughts as a third party. He did not tell me to make my own video about it. He mostly just wanted me to write my thoughts down for a video that he was making. But, as I was creating notes, I realized I was practically writing my own commentary script against it to begin with, and since he wanted me to give my thoughts, I'm going to give my thoughts. I will state out of the gate I haven't much idea what's going on, at least not beyond the videos that are currently public. It's also not my horse, not my race. I am not involved.
So you'll comment on drama that, by your own admission, you weren't particularly knowledgeable of in order to defend Lyle from some allegations that were made against him because he asked you to do it. But when multiple people, from your detractors to some of your own fans, ask you to comment on the FCK server drama and either prove your innocence or own up to your mistakes, suddenly you're like, I don't want to make any wild claims without any evidence. It's very interesting how that works, huh?
And before somebody tries to defend Doodletones calling me an anti-vaxxer by bringing up that he unlisted the video in which he made that claim and apologized for getting some things about my original video wrong, let me emphasize that Sean's apology towards me was vague as hell. In the original Twitter thread he made addressing his list, the only thing he acknowledges when it comes to his coverage of my video is that he misremembered some things that were in my second video. This tweet is then accompanied by a screenshot of a comment one of my fans left on his list, and no disrespect to them, but their comment doesn't bring up anything about Sean calling me an anti-vaxxer. They just grill Sean for some of the other things he got wrong about me. So while Doodletones does deserve some credit for effectively taking the list down and apologizing for how sloppy it was, I'm not going to accept this apology because it was purposefully made vague so that he can maintain plausible deniability while not actually owning up to what he specifically did. And don't trot out the bullshit excuse of, well, he wasn't calling you an anti-vaxxer, he just said that you were putting out anti-vax narratives in your video. Like, motherfucker, what do you think the implication is there exactly? Why would I be pushing anti-vax narratives in my video if I wasn't an anti-vaxxer myself? Even if I were to grant you that, however, at best, Sean grossly misconstrued my arguments, which isn't really that much better. And before somebody else says, so you have no problem with Gilded Pooh collecting bestiality porn so that he can knowingly spam it in Discord servers that have minors in it? Let me make it clear that I do not support nor endorse Gilded Pooh's type of trolling, and personally find what he did to be rather gross, even with the proper context behind it. However, I do not necessarily have to like Sean's targets in order to defend them when he lies about them, such as when Sean implied that Gilded Pooh is just out here knowingly spamming random Discord servers, even ones with minors in them, with bestiality porn, when in reality, Pooh only sent that kind of porn to Queen Seraphina's server specifically because she and her friends raided his server with similar porn first. On top of that, Gilded Pooh didn't know that there were members of the server who were underaged until after the fact. On top of that, Pooh didn't even send the bestiality porn. He only sent one scat image before being banned from Queen Seraphina's server, at least according to his own testimony. Still doesn't make what he did good, but it doesn't mean that Sean just gets to lie about it either.
So yeah, the reason that he isn't covering it isn't because he doesn't have the evidence, it's not because he doesn't remember what was in there, it was because it makes him and the rest of his pathetic fucking posse of friends look bad. That's why he's not fucking talking about it.
But it's also holding me to a particularly pedantic complaint about something that's still true. Madlibs' complaint is with me calling this stuff diaper shit that I did in 2014 that people still hold me to, but specifically brings up a particular RP that I did when I roleplayed as a childlike character in 2015 as a way to call me dishonest. But I still did diaper-related fetishy shit in 2014 that people have taken issue with, so
Okay, so what exactly is this point supposed to prove again? Because keep in mind, the point that Madlibs made in her tweet was more so about how you had other degenerate shit that you were getting up to that you never told them about. How does telling her, well, I never lied about the diaper fetish stuff, really debunk the fucking point that she's making? I mean, all you're really doing here is admitting that you did at one point have a diaper fetish, which I thought was like the whole thing that you've spent like 8 years trying to debunk.
You're really just doing Akumu's dirty work for him, and it shows.
And man, what a fucking passive-aggressive ass comment to make at the end there. Yeah, it's wrong for that Alex the Critic guy to come off as super passive-aggressive and misconstrue people's arguments to make himself seem smarter than he is. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to passive-aggressively talk about how Madlibs is doing Akumu's dirty work for him and misconstrue the argument that they're trying to make so that I can make it appear like I'm getting an own on them.
But in any case, I'm not here specifically to rag on Madlibs, or even Akumu. I'm certainly not happy with either, but that's not the purpose of this video.
What have they been doing exactly that is getting you angry? Right? Like, I can at least understand Madlibs. What exactly has Akumu done over the past couple of days? Because most of what he's been up to has been exposing the degenerate shit that has gone on in the FCK server. Sure, he's made a few offhand remarks about how you're just as much of a degenerate as the rest of your friends, but outside of that, what exactly has Akumu actually done to warrant you not being happy with him?
The purpose of this video is to compile the history of my involvement with weird fetishy stuff, specifically talk and address the role plays that I did back then, explain how I got there and why, probably once again condemn younger me for getting involved in an environment that could have put me in danger, and put that shit out there for the upteenth billionth time because addressing this shit genuinely never ends and no one ever hears me address it. And I have addressed all of this shit in the past. Too many times to count, frankly.
You know, Sean, I would have a lot more empathy for your position if you didn't tell Akumu this when he went to you about dealing with this exact same problem.
As someone who still has, just a robot get brought up, or Medicare, as you might know, Akumu, I just kind of roll my eyes and kind of just disengage myself.
Yeah, all of that empathy and people not listening to me each time I address all of this old shit nonsense, that goes out the window when you tell Akumu that he should just get on with his life and not worry about what losers on the internet bring up about him.
We'll call back to at least one of those videos going through this again. So let's talk about my general journey into the world of fetish art.
So I am going to play a couple of long clips from Sean's video, but the point will be to illustrate how he himself sets up this timeline about how he got into degenerate shit from an early age. That is going to be important for some of the stuff he says later in the video, but I do want to explain that we're going to be watching large chunks of said video without any commentary. And all of that is the reason why.
Before we do though, I want to make something clear as we go through this. I was born January 18th, 1997. I am 27 years old as of this video, but if you're watching this in the future, you can do the math to figure out how old I am by the time of you watching this. This time, I'm not holding anything back. I'll talk about some things that I've never talked about before, some things that I had to get reminded of recently, some of it's uncomfortable, some of it's genuinely traumatic, but enough time has passed that I think addressing this will finally get people to understand a bit better. Not that I think it'll do anything to get people to drop the subject, like, God knows most of these people are only throwing this at me as a way to get me to fuck off, but nearly a decade later, and I have a much better grasp and understanding of what I actually did wrong.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to make it clear that I'm not making this video in an effort to get Doodletones to fuck off. I'm not interested in canceling anyone. I am not here to run anyone off of the internet. Frankly, I could give a fuck less if Doodletones keeps making videos or not. My main goal with this video is just to criticize them for being a fucking hypocrite and a liar and just an all-around unpleasant person to deal with. Second of all, one whole decade later and I have a much better grasp of what I actually did wrong? Yeah, tell that to all of the shit going on in the FCK server that you and your friends stayed fucking silent silent on. None of y'all said a single goddamn thing about it. Madlibs never made a video about it. Nezzy Monster never made a video about it. Names Junkie never made a video about it. None of you motherfuckers made a video about it. Yet you want to sit there and talk about, oh, I have a better grasp of what I did wrong. Fuck you.
And so, we can talk about it. Also, it'll just be nice to have this video to throw at people. I think it would also be a good PSA. You'll understand.
Oh man, what was that you said about me and being passive-aggressive, Doodletones?
Alex kind of reminds me of that kid Douglas a bit, specifically in regards to the passively spiteful approach that can turn aggressive when provoked, and his need to take things out of context or misconstrue a narrative to make himself seem smart.
Why did you think making this video would make you look good?
Anyway, so to start, let me paint a picture. I've been online most of my life. As little as 6 or 7 years old, I was allowed on my mother's computer to play EverQuest, so I'm as terminally online as they come, which has its own brand of issues with it, but we're not going to get into those right now. As I grew up, obviously I had a variety of places that I would frequent, people that I would talk to, and just everything you'd expect a kid to realistically be doing on the World Wide Web. Initially, it started simple. I would be mostly on kid sites like Sticker World, Armor Games, Cartoon Network, kid spaces that you'd expect kids to be on. The worst in my early years I can remember that I did was created a YouTube channel when I was 12 and the Music Shake a year later, but generally that's as far as I can remember. It's when I had hit my teen years that things really started to go downhill, as that's when I joined DeviantArt and started posting there. Apparently, I was really into the 4chan rules of the internet at the time because my first upload was of what I had deemed a simple Rule 63 of myself. Truly, I showed no signs of being trans, no siree.
This isn't funny!
Joking aside, I have no idea where I met the rules of the internet, or even the specific one in question, but I recalled that I had them saved on my school iPad at the time, so that's what got me to draw the first iteration of my Sona, posted November 12th, 2011. So what I would have been 14 years of age if I'm doing my math right. By 2012, I would post a few things worth of note on DeviantArt. Apparently by this point I was using a social chatting service known as Chatango, a place where anyone could contact you if they wanted to just by scrolling through an extensive user list. Here, I know I was definitely sent my first dick pic, as that was something that spooked me so much that I wrote a song about it, and the extra porn bot accounts that would send me links to cam sites for Music Shake. As questionable as these lyrics are, the general event absolutely did happen. I also had confirmed myself as getting a Skype by this point, where I would talk to some of my longest friends that I met through a live streaming Minecraft place called Ghost in the Stream. Now, mind you, Ghost in the Stream itself used Chatango for its chat box, so that doubly helps in the doodle was not where she was supposed to be idea. I had also confirmed that I was a user on a social game known as Imvu, which, if you know what that is, there's not really much of a reason to explain the problems there. Definitely shouldn't be on there when you're less than 18.
So, I would like to reiterate that Doodletones was getting into all of this degenerate shit long before what happened to them actually happened. I'll get into what exactly happened to him later on in the video when he discusses it himself. But trust me, there is a lot to fucking say there.
There was also a particularly interesting jump between two images, being the first of two Dare images that I would make, and the 9th page of a comic that I was creating at the time where we had a character physically and mentally age regress to bypass weirdness in the setting, but only to create more weirdness in real life for me, though one could make the argument in favor of this just being unfortunate implications. However, the implications are still unfortunate. Recall that by this point, though, I would have been 15, if my math is correct. Moving on into age 16, I created the Transformation World comic, one where much of the irresponsible and gross things started popping up. Specifically, ABDL themes, because gender swapping was, always a thing that I was aware of. That was in, most TV shows I had watched as a kid, but these other themes had to come from somewhere, yeah? There's no way I would have just known of this stuff, would I? Hold that thought, because I'm going somewhere with this. 2014, so age 17, still a minor, a lot of things start falling into place. So not only do I start getting super into fetish content, being super supportive of others, and even doing my first error message erotic roleplay that turned into what we are eventually going to get into talking about, creating fetish-centric characters, which had gotten me in trouble when a character wasn't supposed to be sexual, but whose themes were. questionable at best, started popping up in other people's communities, and just all in all getting into content that I should not have gotten myself involved with. I even went back and started reviewing some of the content that I already had consumed to talk about the... right, there it is. So... in my review of a manga called Mika ni Harassment, one that I did for two friends who are not into that kind of content, by the way, I mentioned that this was the thing that got me invested in fetish content as a whole. Obviously, I'm not going to go down the everything that this manga was about, but all that needs to be said is that it's an ecchi manga that portrays a lot of themes of voyeurism, pet play, and age play. Now, I don't remember the exact how I found this, but I know it had something to do with the Chitango chat that I, at the time, frequented because it was connected to a website where you could just watch anime. A thing like Kiss Anime, but it has a chat box with randos feeding you anime and manga recommendations. It was brought up amongst a chat there, and I read it, and then followed that up with several other ecchi pieces of media that manga websites would list alongside it. To clarify, it was this piece of media being talked about with a curious minor in the room, and it was this and other related media that made me so desensitized to sexual topics. This was what garnered me my initial intrigue. This is precisely why it's important, actually, to not have kids be around NSFW topics and themes, as it's shit like this that endangers them to potentially get groomed or put into other sexually explicit situations.
You know what, Doodletones? I can actually agree 100% with that. So, please tell me exactly why you haven't said dick about what the FCK was doing with minors again. They were doing, literally, some of the exact same shit that you're currently grilling randos on the internet from a decade ago for doing. So I do agree, children should not be exposed to this kind of explicit material, but don't try to sit there and pretend like you and your friends are any better than these people.
And I know this now, obviously, but look at where I was leading up to turning 18.
Yeah, you know this now, which is why you haven't said anything about the shit going on in the FCK server.
I was, knowingly or not, putting myself in danger hanging around these communities. And it's again, not just the ABDL communities either. I had role plays that had furry themes involved. I had inflation roleplay, macro, bimbo, humiliation, futanari, S&M. Like I had a whole RP with basically everything under the sun in it. It's frankly no wonder I watched Bondage Game. But again, I was 17 at the time of all of these examples. I was a minor, which still isn't good, mind you. I'm not saying it was, but I am trying to put all of this into perspective.
Okay, so kudos of you to admit that none of this was good, but how exactly does this challenge the perception that you were a degenerate? Once again, let me reiterate that I'm not here to run him off the internet because he is a degenerate. I just want an explanation as to how none of this shit makes him a degenerate.
This was more or less my upbringing in my teen years. I was always online. I was online homeschooled. I was struggling in classes, stressed out, and then being desensitized to sexual themes. It's a no wonder that I used roleplay like that to escape reality. I know. You don't want to hear I was in a bad place. It's not what I'm saying, but you don't want to hear it anyway. So, let's move on then. With all of this laid out, moving into 2015, January 18th rolls around and I become legally an adult. I hit 18. Mind you, I'm still doing role plays by this point, and while I don't exactly realize what day I dropped out of high school, I was still definitely stressed the fuck out about it all. So, these role plays were definitely my go-to.
Excuses! Excuses! How am I supposed to trust you when all you give me are excuses?
On March 21st, 2015, I released the infamous Game Girl RP. Those who have watched Doodle is Cringe may recall me already addressing this one directly and condemning the action itself.
You smell of poo-poo pee-pee. I see.
I won't go too in detail about each RP I did because I don't feel as if there's a lot to talk about, to be honest, which, given how people often talked about it, you'd figure there would be, but there's really not. Most didn't really go anywhere or do anything interesting digging through them. However, there was one that I would be amiss to talk about. The Game Girl RP. technically this is out of order since it was 2015, but since we're talking about them now, and this one did spark up a little bit of controversy in 2018 that got some very not so nice allegations lobbed at me, I feel like I should talk about it now. Mainly because of the not thought out descriptor of the character not being physically older than 8 years old, and then having one of the people I was role-playing with have a character that was supposed to be moldable, grow breast only to grope them. It's a little creepy, sure, I don't really have an excuse for how creepy it sounds, and I'm not going to defend it on the basis of it being creepy or otherwise uncomfortable. I was a stupid 18-year-old by this point who didn't know how to tell people that I was uncomfortable.
If you're uncomfortable with a situation, a conversation, a discussion with someone, do you make an alt account to come back and continue the roleplay that you're uncomfortable with? Well, apparently, Susie does. It's very interesting.
I'm just saying, it's a little weird that with how uncomfortable Sean claims he was during all of this, he went through the whole process of creating yet another account to continue the roleplay on, and never once during it thought to himself, you know, I don't like how doing this is making me feel. Maybe I should stop doing this.
Though the purpose of the RP wasn't to be sexual, that's just where the role player took it, and I allowed it. And obviously, 5 years after this roleplay, and I haven't done anything similar since, even when I was still doing the fetishy roleplays in 2016, age 19, I think it's safe to say that I've learned from this. It was just one of those of-the-time things that I grew from. In any case, yeah, it's creepy. But I learned from where my boundaries were doing these, and they were a good source of escapism during a time where I really needed it, so I don't particularly feel as if I regret having done the RPs, no matter how many people believe that I probably should. It's just one of those things that I can look back at and cringe, knowing that I grew from.
Alright, so help square this away from me, Sean. If engaging in these roleplays helped you learn your boundaries in regards to engaging in risque sexual conduct, then why didn't you say anything about what your friends were getting up to in the FCK server? Remember, a good chunk of the degenerate shit that happened within the FCK server occurred throughout 2020, a whole 5 years after Sean engaged in this roleplay. And Sean knew about all of this as far back as May of 2023. So if this event really helped him grow as much as he says it did, then why is he staying silent about all of this?
The one thing that I would like to make an addendum for is my lack of regret when last talking about this, because I was made aware of some less than savory things we'll get to here in a sec. But for now, let me focus a little bit more on this roleplay. The misconception about this roleplay being that it was supposed to be inherently sexual is one that I never properly really explained. See, the character was supposed to be a female companion of some kind, yes, but it didn't have to be a sexual one. And I can confirm this by the other two threads that people very commonly overlook. Because Kirby 1250 was not the only person to take up this roleplay. In Nick's story, the two played Mario Kart. In Dragon of Times, she was setting up to be like a babysitter or a maid. And in both those stories, she was described as slightly older, looking like a 10-year-old instead of an 8-year-old. Which would still be weird if either of those stories went the same way Kirby's did, but all in all, it was not built to be sexual. It was just this one person who took it that direction.
So once again, I just have to ask how exactly that makes things any better? Guys, come on, I know you all rag on me for killing 3 innocent people, but 2 of those people weren't actually killed by me. Yeah, but you still killed an innocent person. Stop overlooking the other 2 innocent people that I didn't kill.
And while I'm actually not going to defend the descriptor or the allowing of it to get that far, that's still on me for not drawing that boundary. I will say that, with everything leading up to that point, when you put everything into its proper context and not just keeping it in a vacuum at face value, much like these people tend to do, it becomes less Doodle is a degenerate or worse, a predator, and more Doodle actually didn't know any better. Because I didn't. I didn't have anyone tell me that I shouldn't be there, and I had grown up in an environment where this kind of behavior was encouraged. I shouldn't have done it. I agree there. That is my fault. I was 18, I was legally an adult. I should have tried to be more responsible in my actions. But I did not realize I was doing anything wrong.
Oh my god, I fucking hate these arguments. How are you going to sit there and admit that you carried out this erotic roleplay where you yourself describe that the girl at the center of this roleplay can't be any older than 8, and yet still sit there and try to say that this doesn't make you a degenerate because you didn't know any better? Keep in mind that Doodletones, by his own admission, was 18 when this shit happened.
I was 18, I was legally an adult.
Like, I'm sorry, but are we to believe, are we seriously to believe that at 18 years old, this bitch didn't know anything about sex or that these fucking fetishes weren't fucking normal? Are you really expecting me to believe that you were that naive and oblivious at 18 years old when you grew up on the internet? Like, even if you're against kink shaming, right? And you don't think that there's anything wrong with people having these sorts of fetishes or role plays, which is a whole other discussion, but even if you think that, can we at least agree that this isn't normal? Like can't we fucking admit that? It's the fact that he still, after all this time, can't just bring himself to say, yes, I was a degenerate. He has to come up with this bullshit about how he didn't know any better, despite the fact that he grew up on the fucking internet. Guess what, Sean? I also grew up with a lot of unrestricted access to the internet, and when I was that age, I knew full well what this shit was, just like you did. So stop fucking sitting there and acting like this shit ain't degenerate. Like, just admit it. Really, like, that's really all I'm asking for. Like, I'm not even trying to cancel him. I'm not here to run him off the internet. I don't want him to lose his channel or his Twitter account. I'm not here to try and fucking censor the dude. I just want him to admit it. Like, just fucking admit it. Admit that you were at one point a degenerate. Like, stop coming up with all these bullshit excuses when anyone with half a brain would look at this shit and say, it's fucking weird. It is abnormal. Nobody does this. Nobody fucking does this. But it's the fact that he can't bring himself to say that makes me hate Doodletones.
Let's put one final nail in the coffin of the idea that Doodletones just didn't know that it was bad for him to be exploring these sexual rabbit holes at his age by going back to something he talked about earlier in the video, which was his review of a sexually degenerate manga named Mika ni Harassment. Allow me to read a screenshot of the review for you guys. Here's another review of a sexualish thing. This time it's a manga, for my friends Wade and Rena, who I think could use a read-through of this. See, we had a conversation on how they don't much care for fetish art, and I know a lot of people share the same thoughts on this subject, but see, I'm not much into every fetish. However, I understand everyone has their own likes and dislikes, so I don't mind fetish art. However, again, I understand not everyone is as open-minded about this subject as I guess I am. That may be a bit egotistical, but really, let's be honest. Most of you probably never bothered reading Collar 6 or playing Trap Quest, so tell me how open-minded you actually are. And if you have, congrats, you are pretty fucking open-minded. Anyway, on to the review. Mika ni Harassment is the manga I read to truly respect fetishy art. It's definitely a tad hard to read at first, but once I started I couldn't stop. For those of you who aren't able to open your mind, or don't have the time to read the manga, here's a breakdown review of each book/chapter. Now tell me, Sean, if you were just an oblivious child who was desensitized to these degenerate sexual interests, and thus saw little to no issue with contributing to these communities because everybody was encouraging you to continue doing so, then tell me why, at 17 years old, you wrote about how there were people who are close-minded about these degenerate sexual fetishes. Wouldn't acknowledging that there are people out there who don't support these types of interests prove that you knew damn well that there might be issues one could take with it? After all, why would all of these people, including 2 of your own friends, be close-minded about these sexual interests, or at the very least turned off by them, unless they thought such interests were wrong? At the very least, it proves that Sean was wrong when he said that everyone and everything he encountered on the internet swayed him towards being a degenerate, because he wouldn't even know that anybody was close-minded about these topics unless he encountered those people himself.
Because going even further than that, you might also have the very real argument of Doodle was groomed into it.
Okay, so before we get into this, I just want to make two things very clear. First off, I am not here to deny Doodletones' grooming story. They provide several fucking logs that this shit happened to them, and so I am willing to believe them on that front. Two, I am not trying to justify or defend what the groomer did, nor am I here to insinuate that Doodletones deserved what happened to them. My criticisms of this are completely separate from the fact that this did in fact happen to him. With that said, take it away, Sean.
And for like a decade, I didn't even realize that I might have been until going through my old Skype logs earlier this month.
Keep that point about how Sean didn't even feel that he himself had been groomed until he went back and looked at the Skype logs this month in mind, because it will come up later.
I don't know where this person is at now, so I suppose this is just for peace of mind at this point and to help contextualize things a bit better, but the same year that I got super into erotic roleplay, I met this person called White Clouds 1988, also known as Alex.
Oh my god. Why do so many of these fucking assholes have to share my name? First there was that asshole who falsely copyright striked many of Akumu's videos about Mugen, and now there's this weirdo who was out here grooming minors at 26. I just want to make it clear that I am not the same Alex that Doodletones is talking about. In fact, I was born in 1999, which I think makes me like 2 or 3 years younger than Doodletones. We just happen to share the same first name.
We used to chat a lot with each other, and when I say chat a lot, I mean we chatted a lot. We met November 22nd, 2014, so remember I was still 17 at this time. Alex here was, according to their profile, 26 at the time, so a year younger than I am now as of this video. They knew I was as young as I was at the time too. In fact, they said that I was cooler than they were at that age. It was one of the first conversations we had. That same day, I was also allowed to trauma dump on them about my rampant suicidal ideation, and they were allowed to just casually talk about the time that they tried anal while talking with me about asexuality. We then got onto the topic of diapers, as that was the circle that we met each other in, after all. And at the time, I felt like I wanted to need them. I could not tell you why all these years later, but it probably had something to do with, well, everything else that I have brought up prior, but it's like weird, right? Because even in the conversation we had, even at the time, I didn't really see myself as an adult baby or a diaper lover. I was interested in the fetish, yeah, there's no denying that. But I was interested in a lot of fetishes by that point. I'd played games like Trap Quest, I'd read all of Caller 6's works at the time. Even in the conversation we had, I was obviously already aware of hypnosis. I was just kind of deep in the rabbit hole, generally. Like, if it was a sex-related thing, I was probably fascinated by it to some degree, so I didn't really see myself directly as ABDL, and I still don't, despite how many people want to say that I am.
Oh yeah, I wonder why so many people continue to say that you are into the ABDL fetish. Could it be something to do with all of the ABDL fetish artwork that you posted to DeviantArt? Or that you were actively consuming content that featured similar themes? No, obviously. The only reason why anyone's saying that you had a diaper fetish at any point in time is because they just want to smear you for no good reason. That's a funny pun.
I was just kind of told that I was by this person on the internet I met literally a day ago by the conversation, and at the same time they had dropped onto me that they wanted to be that caretaker for me, which should have been a red flag, especially after they said they'd be willing to do so in real life, and obviously littler me knew something was up, but, you know, I am colorblind, so I guess I didn't notice enough. Jokes aside, this is horribly uncomfortable to go through. So after these conversations, talking about how already deep in the sauce I was, that's what sparked a lot of our relationship. We would roleplay with each other in various chat rooms, specifically relating to themes of gender bending and ABDL. Those not being the only things, mind you, but those were the common themes. I'm just not going through each of the roleplays we did, as there were 4 long-form ones and then a bunch of smaller ones. This was a very common thing between us. This person saw themselves as my virtual mommy, in a sense, and given the age gap between us, that's obviously a bit creepy, yeah? Can we agree on that? Are we going to sit here and say that it is my fault as the minor in the relationship? Because I'm still frankly processing a lot of this, and I'm not entirely sure what to do with it myself.
Ah, there's that good old passive aggressiveness again. What was it that Sean said about me in his top 10 worst commentaries of 2022 list again?
Alex kind of reminds me of that kid Douglas a bit, specifically in regards to the passively spiteful approach that can turn aggressive when provoked, and his need to take things out of context or misconstrue a narrative to make himself seem smart.
I don't even mind the tone in anyone's voices when they're making whatever point they want to make. It's the fact that he got onto me for doing the exact same thing that pisses me off.
There's also a lot of very personal details in these messages too, so I'm not going to go over everything in this video, but it was both stuff that seemed so small and insignificant, like whether or not I enjoyed physical contact, but became like generally identifiable information to me as a person, giving this adult more of an idea of who I was as a kid, a full profile of me, more or less. We would also talk about what turns us on, how much I weighed and measured, what we saw in friends, who my other friends even were. This person was obviously trying to get to know me exceptionally well, and using these RPs to arrive to that point. And I'll admit fully, I too got very persistent in these RPs. It was like every day or so for me that I wanted to do one. It was the escape that I wanted, the escape I felt I needed. It was definitely not the escape that I should have had, though. And if you're still not convinced that what I went through was an instance of grooming, then I'm not sure what else to tell you, other than that it almost worked. The more we talked, the more open I was, until we got to the point I was so okay with being their little kitten. At least until I became their little bunny instead. I started feeling sick going through these DMs, if you can't tell. It's, to me, like looking at an entirely different person. And they were even there during my 18th birthday, still calling themselves my mommy, and I calling myself their little bunny girl, their ditzy little bunny girl. This is what you wanted, right? For me to get vulnerable and disgusted at myself?
Ooh, that line. That fucking line. There's so much that I already want to say here, but there's an even worse line at the very end of the video that I think will serve as a more suitable point for me to explode into an even angrier rant than everything you've heard thus far. So we'll wait until then for me to share with you guys what I think about this line.
Would you like to know that I made an OC based on our interactions? I have a little bunny girl myself that some people took issue with in 2018 because of the questionable themes, and that was literally how I was groomed to envision myself. So no fucking duh that I didn't understand some things pretty early on. Like what do you even do to a kid like this?
Oh yeah, that is a pretty harrowing experience. That must be why you yourself were complicit in other kids going through that, by letting them be in a server where adults were distributing pornography to them and not saying a single word about it.
It wasn't just the interactions between the two of us either. I was once added to a group that contained other people that were treated in a very similar way to I met this person named Erica, Alex's kitty or big sister, depending on the mood, I suppose. I don't know much about their interactions or the age gap between them, but with me being the minor in the room and being told that I should be a kitty like Erica, I don't know, man. Alex and I stopped being in contact by October 20th, 2015, which very much overlaps with the Gross as Fuck Game Girl RP. So, in a roundabout way of saying it, yes, I did do the Game Girl RP, I'm not denying that, and I will correct the misinformation behind it and say that I was 18 doing so. It is weird. It is creepy, and I should have stopped doing it when I still could.
So it's weird and creepy, and yet you engaging in these roleplays doesn't make you a degenerate because you were groomed into it? Despite the fact that the roleplays were done with a completely different person and occurred after you turned 18. And that's not even considering all of the other degenerate shit that Doodletones was getting up to long before this point. Again, I'm not here to deny that he was groomed. All I'm saying is that whether he was groomed or not, what he did was still degenerate and therefore made him a degenerate.
There's a reason I don't partake in that kind of content anymore, and that is because I know better now.
Which is why you haven't said anything about the FCK server despite knowing full well what was going on in it.
However, I didn't at the time.
So again, that's like bullshit, because as Sean himself admitted, these roleplays took place when he was 18 years old, and regardless of if he was groomed into doing this or not, it's still degenerate, it's still wrong, he shouldn't have done it. This doesn't really excuse anything, nor does it make what he did any less degenerate.
For fuck's sake, you wrote an entire ass review lambasting people for being close-minded about certain sexual fetishes. How can you sit there and say that you didn't see any issue with this type of content, or even conceive of any issues that other people could take with it at the time when you were out there shaming others for not liking it? Again, Sean is trying to paint things as though he were completely and totally oblivious to the dangers surrounding this kind of stuff, and in no way knew about any possible objections people could make towards degenerate sexual content existing and being spread around, but that just doesn't line up with his own fucking screenshots. Oh, and don't try to use the excuse that he was groomed into feeling this way, because Sean met his groomer in November of 2014, while this review was written in June of 2014.
And for 8 years, people had been weaponizing this against me. For 8 years, I have had to deal with people dragging this back up to be public again and again.
Ah man, you know, I would be a little more sympathetic towards you if it wasn't for the fact that all of your buddies in the FCK did this exact same thing to Akumu over the shit he did in the Madame drama for 4 fucking years. And yet, what was it you told him when he brought these exact same grievances to you?
As someone who still has, just a robot get brought up, or Medicare, as you might know, Kumu, I just kind of roll my eyes and kind of just disengage myself.
So yeah, just more complete bullshit and moralizing about how people have been weaponizing this against you, as if you and your friends haven't been doing that exact same thing for y'all's entire careers. Just get out of here with that shit, honestly.
For 8 years, people weaponized my grooming against me. And for 8 years, I did not realize it. Because for 10, I didn't even know I was.
Oh, there it is. That right there. That was the line that convinced me to make this fucking video. For 8 years, people weaponized my grooming against me. So first of all, right, nobody even knew that any of this shit was happening because, as you yourself admitted, all of this shit had been kept under wraps for a decade because you yourself did not feel that you had been groomed. It wasn't until you actively went back to check the Skype logs that you realized, holy shit, I was groomed by this asshole. So unless there was like some public mention of this shit somewhere else, which I have no reason to believe there was because Sean would have brought it up in this video, you have no business sitting there and accusing others of weaponizing your grooming against you, if we were just as much in the dark about it as you were. You see, this is why I hate Doodletones. It's not that he had a diaper fetish, it's not even that he was a degenerate at one point in time. Neither of those things help, of course, but those are not the reason why I hate him. The real reason why I hate Doodletones is because he's a fucking liar and a hypocrite. He'll sit there and chastise the rest of you for weaponizing his grooming story against him when none of us even knew that he had been groomed, including he himself. and complain about how people haven't stopped bringing this up to him time and time again after 8 years when his fucking buddies have been running a gay op against Akumu for the shit that he did during the Madame drama in 2020.
I'm not coming back to this conversation. You got what you asked for.
So what is it exactly that we were asking for? Because I didn't recall asking for Doodletones to be groomed so that I could weaponize his grooming story against him. So what the fuck is this you got what you were asking for bullshit about? Like seriously, what the fuck is with this?
That is my answer. That is my response. That is me addressing it again. Now go away and leave me alone.
Yeah, you know, I would leave you alone, but there's this little server called the FCK that you were a part of, and in this little server, your friends spammed and shared porn to minors, and I don't recall any of you people talking about that for years. And in fact, you guys are only now starting to cover it because it was about to blow up in your fucking faces. So no, I don't really think that anyone's gonna be ready to leave you guys alone. You never gave that courtesy to anybody else, especially you, Lio Convoy, so yeah, I'm not giving you that same fucking courtesy. Okay, enough with the angry ranting. If I keep going on and on, I'm going to pop a goddamn blood vessel. So let me just move on to my final thoughts.
If I had to describe Doodletones' video in 4 words, those 4 words would be spiteful and tone deaf. Spiteful in that Sean takes every opportunity he can to paint his detractors in the least charitable light possible, which wouldn't necessarily be a problem if he didn't have a history of going after others for doing the exact same thing. And tone deaf in the sense that Sean's priorities are out of fucking whack. In case you need reminding, Doodletones is currently under fire for being a member of a server in which several of his friends engaged in sexual activities with minors, and not saying nor doing anything about it for years. On top of that, as he himself continuously makes clear in this video, his degenerate activities from years past is something that he's publicly addressed time and time again. With those 2 things in mind, why he didn't just focus on addressing the far more serious allegations regarding his being complicit in the sexual abuse of minors is beyond me. You can't say it's because Madlibs grilled him for doing an incredibly gross erotic roleplay in her original Twitter thread, because as I brought up earlier, Madlibs was more upset with Sean downplaying, if not straight up lying about said degeneracy, than the fact that he is indeed a degenerate. Even if I were to grant you that as an excuse, however, the gamer girl roleplay was not the only thing that Madlibs criticized Sean for in her thread. She also threw shade at him for running defense for Nezimonster in regards to the latter's false sexual harassment claims, and yet Doodletones only spends a single fucking sentence addressing that claim in his video. Once again, I think most people would feel that covering for someone who's made a false sexual harassment claim and then lied about the details of said event in their attempts to atone for their mistakes is a little more important of an allegation to address than whether or not you, at one point, had degenerate sexual interests. It comes off as extra hypocritical, considering that Doodles' friend, Lio Convoy, just dropped a 3-hour-long video calling out a small commentator named The Conundrum for all of the shitty stuff he's done. While I agree that Conundrum is a scumbag who should be called out for being guilty of many of the same things that Lio himself has done, and I'll be the first to disavow him, I'm not sure why y'all expect us to get our torches and pitchforks out for him, but expect us to just forget or gloss over the equally scummy things that y'all have been caught doing. Sure, I understand that Sean being groomed is something that needed to be brought to light, but in the context of all of the claims that people have levied at the members of the FCK in the wake of the group's Discord server leaks, placing so much emphasis on it this soon comes across across as incredibly tone-deaf, and is, funnily enough, largely irrelevant to the claims that have been made against Doodletones himself. Doodletones is still a degenerate regardless of his being groomed, thanks in large part to him engaging in sexually deviant behavior long before he ever met his groomer, and him being groomed does nothing to invalidate the claim that he was complicit in the sexual abuse of other minors in the FCK Discord server. So once again, Sean has managed to accomplish little more than adding yet another L to the junkyard of L's that he's had to take throughout his career, with the unintended consequence of making it seem as though he's using his own traumatic past to shield him from any criticism regarding his end of the FCK server drama. Nice going, Doodles.
With all of that said, I'm once again not looking to cancel Sean or have him hauled off to jail or anything. All that I really want is for him to treat these allegations like a goddamn adult instead of a bitchy high school student. Because, I just gotta say, lying about all of the details regarding the FCK server is not making you look any less guilty. I'm Alex the Critic, and I'll see you guys next time.